Welcome back to Attorneys on Call. We have been discussing dangerous medical devices, and we are urging you to call the 800 number on your screen if you have a medical device failure. Even if you don't know the name of the manufacturer, that's not important. What is important is if you are having a medical device failure, that you make a call to the Whitley Law Firm, go online, you can send an email there as well, but contact the Whitley Law Firm. They'll help you get through the situation that may be very dangerous for you right now. And Whitney Butcher and Ben Whitley, and Whitney, you were talking about the way that medical devices can actually get approved by the FDA without actually having testing done, because they're saying it's similar to another device that has been approved.
Right.
That seems really goofy.
It's, it's very interesting. And I think one of the good things that's happening from all of these, hopefully from all the lawsuits, the FDA is really evaluating the way that drugs and devices are approved, and they're essentially overhauling the system. A study just came out that over the last 10 years, there have been 800,000 deaths potentially linked to failed medical devices. That's insane. So this is what we're looking at. And I think, you hit on something that is an important point, I think, Drew. I had a person call me this week, and she said, I spoke to a lawyer in North Carolina, and they told me that I don't have a case, but I've got a metal-on-metal hip, and I keep seeing these TV advertisements. And what she described to me, it sounds like she most probably does have a case that we can help her with. So even if you don't know the type, even if someone else has told you that you might not have a case, it's still important to speak with someone who works on these primarily and can, give you a second opinion at least.
We're even seeing this now being instituted into Hollywood dramas are now incorporating what's going on with hip-on-hip, metal-on-metal hip replacements.
Right, we were talking during a break about that. There's a show on now that it went through this whole analysis that we've been talking about for years on this show.
Exactly.
And one of the major news networks has been doing exposés all week on different medical device failure issues. So I think that through the work of these brave patients and people who have stood up to these manufacturers, the word is out, and the government's looking at this, and it's an issue. It's a real issue. So it's kind of as my dad said, the profits over people problem.
One area that you focus on as well with your law firm is workers' compensation.
Right.
And a lot of people in North Carolina, hardworking folks, but unfortunately, folks get injured on the job.
Right.
And then there's that whole, what do I do now? And
Yes.
there's a lot of questions about it. There's a stigma attached to workers' comp. Oh, you're accepting workers' comp, you must not want to really work.
Right.
Ben, kind of clear that up for us.
Well, sure, and that's obviously not the case. I mean, the system is designed to help an injured worker if they're hurt on the job, to pay their wages while they're out and to pay for their medical. And that seems simple, but is it a complex situation. And one of the things that, since we have just a little bit of time, is I wanted to talk about some of the recent trends that I have seen as far as insurance tactics and dealing with workers' comp cases. And one of them that I see right now a lot is very aggressive return to work programs. So if somebody is hurt and the doctor says, you can't work right now, I need you to get off your feet. Let's say you got a broken leg or ankle. You need to get you off your feet so you can rest 4 to 6 weeks, stay out of work. Workers' comp is going to pay for the check. Well, these insurance companies, what we're seeing is they'll send nurses that they hire into the doctor's appointments. And they'll say, well, doctor, I know he can't be on his feet, but could he do some sit-down work for 3 or 4 hours a day? And the doctor, has to honestly say, well, yeah, he can. Well, then that nurse that's being paid for by the insurance company in that doctor's appointment writes up a report, sends it to the insurance company. Hey, he can work 4 hours a day sitting down. The insurance company goes to the job and says, do you have something, anything, even if you have to make it up, of him sitting down and doing some work? And so we've heard some crazy stories about people having to then return to work, because if you don't go back to work, they could fire you or they could stop your benefit checks.
Wow.
Okay? So then we've heard works about, construction guys having to do paperwork in a computer. They've never had to do paperwork in a computer. This company would have never had to have hired someone to do this job they've created. So they create a little job, sit them down, and the whole point is an aggressive return to work. So we're seeing that a lot.
That's a trend.
We're seeing that trend. We're also seeing trends of insurance adjusters trying to offer settlements to people early in their case. In amounts that aren't commensurate with the type of injury. They're offering them a low amount of money for their future medicals when they may need 4 times as much. So these trends, the easiest way to deal with these trends, if you're out there or you're facing them, is call me. call one of my team members, free consultation. We can talk about these issues. We can give you some tips and some hints on how to deal with them. And most importantly, during some of these trends, you need a lawyer. You need somebody on your side, because the insurance company is trying to create a setup job to ultimately stop your benefits.
So what other rights does the worker have in this case?
Well, I mean, the worker does have the right to have a private exam without that nurse.
Without that nurse, so okay,
yes.
you can do
And
that.
That nurse is, the nurse will shove them some papers and say, "Here are my obligations. Sign this." You know, they'll sign it. But what they don't say is in that obligation that you're entitled to a private exam without that nurse present. That you ultimately have that right to. They're not going to tell you that. The insurance company's not going to tell you that, but I'm telling you that right now. And if you have us as a lawyer, we can make sure that we get the same reports that nurse is sending that adjuster, because you won't see them as an injured worker. But if you have a lawyer, we get to see them, and we find out what they're doing. We can be watching over their shoulder while they're doing that. Now, some of the nurse case managers that I've worked with over the years that I've been dealing with workers' comp cases are absolute professionals that I enjoy. That one of them I send a Christmas peanuts to, because she's always been very easygoing with me, and I appreciate that. And some of them are doing their job. But there's also, just like there are bad apples in every bunch.
Yeah, a few bad apples ruin it for everybody, don't they?
That's right.
Yeah.
You just got to be careful. And I always ask my clients, who's sending them their paycheck?
Yeah.
The insurance company. They don't have an obligation to you. Only a lawyer that solely represents you has the obligation and the duty to you to tell the truth, to tell you what the law is, and to fight for your rights and giving you every benefit you're legally entitled to.
Once again, folks, any question that you have for the Whitley Law Firm, the 800 number is on your screen. You can go to the website, whitleylawfirm.com. We're going to be back with much more right after this.